Well, the withdrawal of US troops from 2014 will have far-reaching effects across the Afghan border in Pakistan. In the western province of Baluchistan, 3 days of mourning have been announced after a series of blasts in the provincial capital, Quetta. Funerals for some of the 115 victims took place today. Most of the casualties were from twin blasts at a snooker hall, which killed at least 80. A third bomb in a marketplace left 11 dead and 27 injured. Human Rights Watch claims the authorities are failing to protect Shiite Muslims in Baluchistan, where sectarian fighting plagues the Shiite and Sunni communities. Further north, along the western border of Pakistan, in Waziristan, the cost of the conflict continues to take its toll. In a special report tonight, Chris Woods speaks exclusively to the Pakistan soldiers who've been fighting their own and often underreported war with the Taliban there.
This is the face of another war on terror, a war we don't hear much about. These are Pakistani soldiers, injured after stepping on roadside bombs laid by the Taliban.
बस सर उधर तो गर्दा उठाया और धुआं था, बहुत इतना जहरीला था, थोड़ा सा मुंह में मेरे में गया है और उसके बाद बस मुझे उठाया उन्होंने, साथी जो हमारे साथ थे, फिर रास्ता तकरीबन 1 घंटे का था, उधर लेकर आए हैं लीव, फिर उधर से अस्पताल में ले आए, फिर ये ऑपरेशन किया उन्होंने।
जख्मी जो सार टीम 8:30 बजे टीम और मलगरे हमारा ड्यूटी हाल के रवानू और पल्लारे की मुतमेन ब्लास्ट राउंड पो खत्म।
Pakistan has lost 3,500 soldiers fighting this war. The civilian casualty toll is higher still. 30,000 people have died here since 9/11. Many Pakistanis feel there are no rewards for cooperating with America's war on terror anymore.
The only solution is to disengage from the US war. The moment you disengage, it's no longer jihad. Once it's no longer jihad, the suicide bomber, the dreaded suicide bomber will stop, because he no longer will go to heavens if he blows himself up, because it's no longer jihad.
Here in the military rehab hospital, there's great professionalism on display in the way their wounded soldiers are cared for. But, they tell us, the casualties just keep on coming.
Every week we receive a new patient here, all right? And there, at times, we receive 2 to 3 patients per week.
Waziristan is the land of lost lives and limbs. It's where those Pakistani soldiers were injured and where many of their colleagues have been slain. This rugged tribal region is also the epicenter of international terrorism. Taliban militants fighting the US and British forces in neighboring Afghanistan take refuge here. Hundreds of would-be suicide bombers train in camps just north of these hills. But there's another Taliban here too, a homegrown one which is trying to overthrow Pakistan's government. And right now, the Pakistanis think they're fighting this Taliban all on their own, apart from the occasional drone strike by the United States. It's rare to get into this part of Pakistan, as it's basically controlled by the military. But the army did invite us in to see what's happening in the most important place in the world right now, if you care about terrorist attacks. Colonel Mohammed Hussain is the man in charge here for the Pakistan Army. He agreed to take us on a white-knuckle ride through the mountainous paths of this region. He wanted us to survey the land which he says the army now controls.
All these areas have been secured by the army. Now, in between this area is complete secured by us. And we intend even bringing people to these areas.
The Pakistan Army went into action to take back South Waziristan in 2009. They launched a ground and air attack on their own sovereign land against the Taliban. That's how bad things had become. All that happened was that the Pakistan Taliban fled to the north of the region, and it's become their new safe haven.
Where they have gone, it's very difficult to say. I can't say where they have gone, but they left this area. They are enemies of our country. They are enemies of the people of South Waziristan. So whenever there's an encounter, they don't come with the, flowers. They come with the guns. So it's a battle there. You have to fight them.
Pakistan army is being targeted because they believe it is collaborating or it is a mercenary army of the US. As long as this perception stays, this area will remain unsettled. The moment you disengage from the US war, Pakistan army is no longer fighting the US war. That's when the people of tribal area will secure the land.
The people of Waziristan, north and south, have suffered the most in all of this. But they've started to return to the southern areas now they feel more secure. There are signs of commercial and civil life returning. Take Chagmalai village. Almost every building was destroyed here in 2009. Local people at the newly rebuilt market told us that so far, a third of 4,000 displaced families have returned. They were anxious to be heard.
موږ دنیا ته دا پیغام ورکوي دا تاسو ولیدلې دغه څه به مو نور خلک چې وویني چې امن پسند خلک دی دهشتګر نه دي او دنیا ته موږ دا فیل دی چې امن زندگی چې چرته خدای دی په ټول ملک راولي او په ټوله دنیا کې دی خدای راولي.
The Taliban and its allies are concentrated in North Waziristan. The US has long been calling on Islamabad to go after them, but this is an incendiary and divisive issue. Pakistan says it's doing enough and will not be pressured into a costly military offensive. The Americans say that until the Pakistanis act, they'll continue their drone attacks to take out Al-Qaeda and Taliban operatives. As we were up in the hills, I asked Colonel Hussain about recent drone activity.
No activity has been carried out in my area. However, you would be subsequently briefed about this once you meet people there at the headquarters. I am sure you have a meeting with them also.
Perhaps it's no surprise that the Pakistan army is uncomfortable talking in public about drone attacks by the Americans. They're deeply unpopular with their own people.
لکاوز د یو ملیټین سره موږ لاس کار به ګناه خال مړ شي کنه یا موږ نه ملیټینز درته جوړ شي کنه
به ګناه خلک مړ کیږي دا شکار د پاکستان حکومت شته دی به پاکستان ته ولنه وایي چې دغه سي ډریک او د موږ د ملک په غا باندې لکه یو قسم ډایرک حمله ده لکه په ملک باندې چې حمله کوي چې یو ملک موږ خپل فورس شته دی هر شي شته دی موجود دي
زه داسې وایم چې بهر ملک امریکا د ټیکنالوژي د موږ د ډرون والا د موږ ملټي فورس تا ورکو په دا باندې موږ خو اشیډي کا دای ډرون عمله پاک پوج را باندې کوي اس خبران دکانه اغه نشانه خو بیا کوي خو دای چې ټیکنالوژي د سره خپل وی کنه امریکا سره په دا باندې موږ ناراض کیږي موږ ته د پکار دي چې پاکستان فوج ته ټیکنالوژي د ډرون عمله والا ورکو دا بیا ډرون عمله کوي چې څنګه کوي کنه.
Back at the War Veterans Hospital, the injured soldiers from Pakistan's army are getting on with life. The rehab process is slow, but some form of recovery is in sight now.
او پرون تقریبا داسې 15 کسه ډاکټران ما سره اکرام سے موجوده وو نور هم کنه ترتیب کولو نافي کولو صحیح ده کنه نو فل حال زلا ورزش کې بالا کتل دا تل ما دوی مروز دي.
Their personal sacrifice for safety in this region has been huge. America and its allies still insist Pakistan needs to do more in the war on terror. These soldiers might argue they've given enough.